Kiki Kannon here with Kannon Studios, and today I'm really excited because I've been wanting to do this video for some time, and it's going to be about how I created my dual daggers that you see behind me. I would take them down, but they're actually wired and the wiring runs through the wall, and I don't want to take them off the wall right now because it's a whole thing. These daggers can either run on battery, or right now they're connected to actually a power source, so they can just be plugged in and continually running. So when I originally created these daggers, I wasn't planning on making YouTube videos or videos on the creation of the daggers. So I do have some footage of working on them. However, it's not all the way documented with video. It's highly documented with pictures, however, so I have enough documentation to kind of explain the process of how I created these props. So I really hope to make some more props and stuff in the future, and if you'd like to support me in that endeavor and want to see more stuff that I make, just feel free to like and subscribe to the video, and I highly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I hope to see you in my next video. So starting out, I created the vectors all on the computer in Vectric and scaled it out to my size and then printed it out and taped it together. And here I'm just planning out all the separated pieces and all the wiring and how the electronics are going to fit in. Originally I was going to create these pieces out of foam, which would have been a lot lighter and probably more affordable. But at the end of it all, it just wasn't really going to have the look that I wanted, and I really wanted to try something new and really push the boundaries with creating these pieces. So the wood was going to act as my masters, and then I'm going to make molds and cast it and clear epoxy. And the reason why I'm segmenting out is for a couple reasons, as far as fitting the lights and the wiring, and also creating differentiation with colors and segregating the different colors in each piece. And for the mold process, it was going to work for the design because there's these gold trim pieces that lay over, so I was able to kind of use that to my advantage. That's how I decided where the pieces were going to be cut up and how I was going to feed the wire in between all of the resin pieces so that the light could bounce through it evenly. After I had all my pieces cut out, it was time for me to shape it into a blade. This process was very tricky as I had to make sure not to over sand and try to keep the shape as best as possible without making it seem like there was a gap, and I had to go in and fill part of it, as this was, again, pretty tricky, but in the end I got it to work, but it was really hard to get everything to kind of line up together. So at the end of it, I have 5 total pieces. And for the trim, I went ahead and used my Dremel to detail out all of the gold. I did the same process for the blade as well, just to kind of give it that iced look. So in this process, I'm coating all my wood pieces. Now that they're sanded smooth, I'm using a Tarbender, and the reason why I'm doing this is to give it a nice glossy sheen so that when I create my molds, it's going to pick up that really glossy look. I did a few layers, and I believe that this was a 24-hour cure time, so I had to leave them in the garage overnight. And I believe I did 2 or 3 coats. And now this is the finished result, and they're super shiny, and overall I'm happy with how they came out. So basically this is kind of where all my wiring, my battery pack, my switch, everything is going to fit in this box, which was really hard to kind of squeeze it all in there and make sure everything was going to be functional. I'm leaving the top shield pieces out of wood, so I'm just going to need to clean them up. And here's basically all the pieces, and for the handles and anything like that and the edges and the rings, all had to be cut out in sections and then glued together and sanded. And to make sure there wasn't any slippage with my pieces, I cut out my own little pegs to place in to fit it all together and then sanded with wood filler. Here you can see the handle and basically the peg system that I was talking about and how it's all holes so that I could cut it out in segments and glue each piece together one by one to basically create the handles. It was a long, tedious process, but patience was really important, not to rush. So here's my body piece, and basically the resin and everything will be sandwiched in between these two body pieces. And the resin pieces will fit into these pieces perfectly, so it's all going to be snug and fit together really well and not be loose. And cleanup was a long process with a lot of sanding to get rid of all the ridges to try to make it as seamless as possible. Both handle pieces taper, so I needed to sand down both of them. So I have to rubber band the pieces together regularly to make sure the fitment matches and it is the same for both blade pieces. So heading back to the blade pieces, I'm going to be making a 2-part mold so that I can cast my resin. I use this mold material. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It's been like 2 years. I could look it up. It was NV something. It was a tin silicone, but I very, very, very specifically remember that it looked and smelled exactly like Elmer's glue. I don't know why, but it just did. It smelled like Elmer's glue to me. And if you're curious, I do have mold videos that you can check out, so feel free to subscribe. So after I poured the one half, I'm just going to go ahead and do the other half and add my gates and also my bleed points. And I had just built the box to create these molds to fit them in there. My garage, I just have an assortment of wood and panels and pieces, and I'm pretty sure at one point this was a bookshelf. I don't remember if I like just found it on the side of the road or something, but I was like, oh yeah, I might need this. So I just use that kind of stuff for molds. So here you can see the 2-part mold, and again I have 5 molds in total to create the whole blade. So looking at this image, I kind of wanted to do like an ice on the edge look, and then you can see the colors kind of shift into greens and blues and purples into darker, more water effect. So I attempted to do that with different powders and dyes, and I'm going to be using EpoxAcast 690. And a few reasons why I decided to go with EpoxAcast for my specific project was just, one reason is my molds were too big for a pressure pot or vacuum chamber, and also I didn't have either of those and my funds were fairly limited at the time. It was tricky because I wanted to have as little bubbles as possible while also having a clear ice look, especially on the edges. This was really, really tricky to do, and I've never done anything like this, and I didn't really have anyone to ask, so this whole project I was just kind of in the dark with, and it was definitely testing, but I did not give up with it. And here's one of my tests that you can see, and it came out just as I wanted, really, really clear. Here's another test. I clearly had too much pigment. So when I pour these, I kind of do it in layers, and I had to do a lot of math. The most challenging part was to get different pieces to match the gradient and line together as one piece transitions into another piece. And here's some sample pieces that I just kind of pieced together to see if it was going to work, but you can clearly see that these don't really match the pattern. And then I had to see kind of what my lights were going to look like in the colors that I've picked and make sure that everything was going to work. So that was my lighting test, and as you can see, the trim pieces hide the seams. And it took a few tries to get the colors that I wanted for my resin pieces. So some of these I didn't end up using. As you can see, one of them did not come out exactly how I wanted, but overall the test seemed good, so I was able to move forward. So for my shield pieces, they stayed and I kept them out of wood, and I added in a light back panel in these. So I wanted to add in some resin into these little hole pieces and give it kind of an effect, adding some cellophane with the resin as well as powders and dyes. I did make a bit of a mess. I don't know how it ended up this way, but no big deal. I just ended up just sanding off the backs to give it a nice smooth look, and I was able to add in some more to make the top glossy, and you can see the cellophane effect there. And then I went ahead and painted it, and then I did some dry brushing with some silver effects. And here's my test lighting with a panel in the back. I got these flat white panels that I got from Arduino, which is where all my electronics and everything came from. So I had to wire that with my other lights on my switch and everything. And so now I'm moving on to painting, and all my wood pieces, I just went ahead and did acrylic paints. And I've painted these pieces probably 5 different ways, I kid you not. I couldn't really make up my mind. And when it came to the gold, I got a nice smooth flat gold, but then I ended up changing it and kind of adding some texture in there and making it a bit darker from my original concept of what I wanted. And overall, it took me a while to kind of figure out how I wanted to paint it, but once I kind of got things going, it started to go a lot faster from there, partly because I had to just start going faster because I had to just finish. I had a deadline that was pretty small, so it was a little bit stressful, so I did the best I could with the time that I had. So after I got all my pieces primed, painted, and sealed, it was time to assemble all the little tiny pieces that I had and add in any extra details. Most of the swords are basically wood and resin. There are a few other small components like nails that I put in for some detailing and the wiring. The last thing I did was create a vinyl strap. Unfortunately, I don't have any photos or video, but you can see it in the last video, but I don't have any in progress because it was literally the last thing that I did. I used these foam square pieces, which worked out great for transport because I had to transport with these. And I was able to put in all my other props and any fragile pieces I had for my costume. Here's the finished product. I hope in the future I can get more videos and pictures of this costume because there's still some parts that I wanted to show off that I haven't been able to. So hopefully this year I'll be able to do that. And thank you all for sticking around and watching my video. Please feel free to like and subscribe for more content. I'm still working on becoming a partner, and I'm hoping that I can make more cool projects like this if I am able to. So thank you guys so much. Thanks for sticking around. If you did stick around for the whole video, if you have any questions, just leave them below. I know I've gotten a lot of questions recently on my resin printing, and I will be getting back to that, and I do see your questions and I'm going to be answering them in my next couple of videos. I'm still waiting to get the first batch of the Jupiter printers. I haven't gotten mine yet, but I'm excited to get mine and start getting printed on bigger things because I have more projects that I'll be doing in the future. So thank you guys. Bye.